And when the preacher spoke about love in church, we almost hid our faces beneath the seats because we felt like, oh, this subject. I'm in church with my girl, or my two girls, and my neighbor was in church with a teenager, a son. I could see the discomfort in these parents when the preacher introduced the subject, and it was like, oh my God, what subject is this in church? But the preacher went ahead and spoke the word of God. And after prayer, we went ahead, right, diving into the subject. What was the subject? The subject was love, love, love. And the way that subject was introduced touched souls. It touched souls because the preacher went ahead and talked of parents who talk of teaching their children love before they are taught by outsiders. And what a subject. We could not lift our eyebrows because we felt like our eyelids, because we felt like, oh my God, what is happening here? How am I going to look at my daughter as we walk home? And the preacher was not bothered, went ahead and discussed at length how men in the families these days are telling their children that they have to teach them love before they are taught out there by their boyfriends or by the men that will marry them, and go ahead and sexually assault these kids in the name of teaching them sex. And what an awful subject it was. We felt like we needed to hide our faces, cover our heads under the seats, but we then listened while making that expression on the face. We could look at the preacher lifting our one eye like this and closing the other. Look at me. And we were like, please stop. Our faces could tell the preacher, stop, but the preacher was going on. The preacher did not sound or look bothered. Even when we looked at him like, oh my, you're saying so much. But he said the society is rotten to a point that the fathers in homes, in families, are teaching their daughters sex in the name of loving them and telling them this man may not do the proper thing to you when you get married. Let me show you how it is supposed to be done. And guys, it was a very awful time that we had in that church. But at the end of it all, we listened. After we consumed the very first 10 minutes, we listened carefully. And mothers, we were warned that we should also beware of the men we have in the name of fathers at home, fathers to our children and our husbands. Because these are the end time days. Things are happening. Men have become beasts, and they have failed to recognize the difference between wives and their children that they have given birth to. And you'll not be very comfortable when leaving your children at home with their dad because you're not sure what the dad can do to them. And the preacher dug deep into this subject as we listened. And the girls that were of age, the teenagers, were looking at each other and giggling and, looking at each other and smiling, and that shy smile. And the parents were trying to develop that very strict look on the face. Like looking to my daughter, I could look at her like this and become very serious. And if you're seated next to your husband in church, you could see the expression on the mother's face while looking at the husband on the other side and looking at him like, and the husband was like, the man look, still concentrating on the preacher but looking like very annoyed. And we are discussing these looks here today, guys, because the man looked very aggressive and very annoyed and was looking at the preacher like spoiling his face. And the wife could look at the husband like, so that is what you people do. And then the girls and the boys, the teenagers, were like shyly looking at each other and shying, and it was such a very uncomfortable situation in church, but the word was preached. Guys, as we were walking out of church after the service, we walked in groups. You know, obviously, where you worship, you must have a friend or two. And we walked in groups, and we could discuss that length in low, that's a topic in low tones, and ask each other, did we today go to church to listen to the word of God? Or did we get advised here? And we could agree amongst us that surely these things are happening, because after something is said or spoken about in church, that is when people open up and say, yes, I even heard so and so saying that this thing happened to them. I even heard in another meeting that so and so went through the same thing that was said in church. And that is when people open up and say, okay, I've heard it happens. And mothers, this was an eye-opener. It was an eye-opener. Do not ever trust a man and think that because they are men, or because they are your husbands, or because they are your brothers living with you, or because they are your cousins that you have housed in your houses, do not leave them with your daughters very comfortably. But the worst of it all is that now we have been warned that even the dads to these daughters that we are teenagers are also becoming, I don't know what word we should use, cannibals. No, not cannibals, but human cannibals. If there is a word like that, they can chew our children even in our absence. Subscribe to this channel, make a sweet comment down there. Let us hear your experience or your thoughts down there in the comment section, and we'll see you guys in the next one.